Hi, I'm Sarah, and I research ancient history so you don't have to. And today I want to talk about the similarities between ancient Roman weddings and modern tradition. So without further ado, let's discuss this topic. Unfortunately, Roman law could not have cared less about romance, and this was actually legalities. And it was about a woman's rights being passed from her father to her husband. But by the late Republic, the bride stayed illegally in her father's family, and weddings were simply just a ritual. Much like how today's weddings are all just pomp because you could technically just get married at the courthouse. And it was during all these pre wedding legalities that the bride to be was given a ring. This was to ward off potential suitors. Next came picking the date of the wedding, which was very important to the Romans because they really believed in lucky and unlucky days. They preferred the second half of most months when the moon was waxing or full, and they avoided the entire month of May. This was because the Festival of the Dead was hosted during this month, a very bad omen. They would even postpone a wedding if they believed they saw a bad omen, which to the Romans could have ranged from thunder to birds flying in a weird way. Then came the wedding day and the bride's preparation. This is where things start to seem familiar. Her hair would have been braided into 6 parts in what was called the sex crinus. Then it was adorned with flowers, jewels, and wool. She would have worn a simple long white tunic that was woven from a single piece and likely woven by herself the day before. Around her waist was a knot, the knot of Hercules, and this is where we get the phrase tying the knot. Only the groom could untie the knot, which, depending on how you viewed your future husband, was either exciting or terrifying. One of the most recognizable accessories for a Roman bride was her flame colored veil called the flammeum, and this was topped with a crown. The veil also partially covered her face, covering her eyes and hitting just at the nose. It's interesting to imagine what this would have been like for so many women. Witnessing your wedding day, not being able to see anything clearly except your feet, which would have had cute yellow shoes on. Now, let's discuss the ceremonies. The groom legally didn't have to be there, but nonetheless, the ceremonies would have been broken up into 3 main parts. This would be them leaving the bride's house, the procession to the groom's house, and then being accepted into the groom's home. At the bride's house is likely where she would have gotten ready with her mother and matron of honor, something else we have carried over. And then, as the Romans do, someone would have sacrificed a pig, and a priest would have looked at its organs to see if the gods approved of the marriage. Then the marriage contracts would have been signed in front of witnesses, and then the bride and groom would have joined their right hands. Next, the bride and groom sat in 2 chairs covered in sheepskin, and then they shared a cake together, a spelt cake. Although doing this in ancient Rome was not like the cute tradition that we do now, it was more of a solemn ceremony performed in front of the priest of Jupiter. Then the doors of the home would have been flung open where the bride and her family would meet the bridal party out in the street. This is when the procession to the groom's house would begin. People would have held her hands, likely because she couldn't see, and sing songs about the newlyweds. And they also threw grains on the couple, which is where we get the throwing of rice tradition. Although for the Romans, it was wheat and nuts. Then she would have arrived at the home of her husband. First, the bride would have smeared animal fat onto the door frame and then strung wool between the posts. And then the bride, if the groom was even there, would say a vow. The third and most important ritual that would happen next was the bride would have been carried by the groom or onlookers through the doorway into the house. As I stated before, the Romans saw omens in everything, so if something bad happened here, like you tripped or were dropped, this would be a very bad omen for the new couple. But if all went well, the groom would have given her fire and water, likely just a torch and a glass of water. Nothing too fancy. This would then signal that the ceremonies were over and the party could start. And the rest, as they say, is history.